I am Elisa Paravidino. I am mobile and payment UX specialist here at Google. I actually been at Google for 8 years. It was my Googleversary last week, which is something we celebrate here. But it's the first time that I'm here on this stage, so I'm a bit excited and a bit stressed as well, so bear with me. So to start, I wanted to start with telling you a little bit of myself. And to do so, I chose these two pictures here. On one side, there is my work life. I am a mobile UX and payment specialist, so I spend lots of my time on your website, trying to give you advices on how to improve them and how to improve the checkout in particular. But there is also this other half of myself. I'm really passionate about mindfulness, and this taught me how emotion actually drive our actions. And you'll see in a bit why I'm telling you this. But let's start first with the topic of today, the mobile checkout experience. You might know now why I added this phrase, mobile. Mobile is our word now. Of course, whatever I will say about the checkout is also valid for desktop. But as I was saying before, if we think for inclusion for the majority of people, which now navigate through mobile, we can include also all the rest. So this is how it is. At least for more than 50% of people, there are many surveys around that. And I feel that checkout experiences like this, like painful, annoying, never ending. But we would like it to be like this, no? Like, not just they're pouring money at us, but they're happy to pour money at us. So jokes aside, we know that checkout is just one other bit of the website. And it's a matter of balance. It's a matter of balance how we choose our priorities. Of course, I'm here today to convince you that the checkout is a key element, if not the most important, because it's the last piece. But also because of numbers. I don't know if you see this research before. It's a Baymard research that found out that 69% on average, so there were actually lots of research, and this is an average number, 69% of cart abandonment happen on e-commerce. It means that people actually putting objects in the cart, and then 69% of them leave. Of course, this is just a number, it's an absolute number. Don't take it as a comparison. Just look at yours. I truly hope you have better than this. But it really tells us that there is a problem here. And this research in particular, it went further, asking people why are you leaving the cart? The reason that came as most was I'm just browsing. So we'll leave that aside, but let's see at the others. The price wasn't clear since the beginning, so the price wasn't updating in the cart. No guest checkout. It was impossible. It was necessary to create an account to complete the checkout. Too long, complicated checkout. Again, this was mentioned before, and this, I'm sure, is for many of you, it's the problem that we try to solve all the time. No trust. So the user didn't trust the website enough to put their credit card in it. And then not happy with some of the offered conditions, and finally some technical problems. There are obvious solutions to all of this, and they are like this. So if the price is not clear, well, make it clear and try to make it that it dynamically update. If there is no guest checkout, well, please provide guest checkout. Please provide social login. Please provide ways for users to log in easily. Simplify your checkout form. I'm going to leave it like this. It's easy, no? Going to see in a while. Add the trust element. Try to reinforce the fact that your website is secure. Offer better conditions and solve technical problems. This is a to-do list, a nice one. I see people are taking photos. Please do, because if you don't fix these problems on your website, you have to. This is the bare minimum. And I'm not saying you don't have to do it. You have to do it. But what I'm trying to bring here is another look, another perspective. So remember I told you before that the emotion shapes our decision. Well, most of the time, we're not aware of that. And most of the time, we're not even aware of many things we do. So it's good to ask people why they're leaving the cart, but there are many things they will never tell you because they don't know. So today, what I want to do is to talk about humans. And you know, you might know some humans. Humans are irrational. Humans are emotion-driven, are unpredictable, are many, many things that are not easy to tell with numbers. And so I thought to introduce this concept using the behavioral model. It's a model that was created by Dr. B.J. Fogg by the Stanford University. Sorry, I always mix this up. And I don't have prizes, but if you can raise your hand, if you ever heard about Dr. B.J. Fogg or this behavioral model. Not many. I'm happy, so I'll tell you something new. I will not deep dive on this, but it basically starts from the behavior. So it's his point of view is that to facilitate a certain behavior, and I'll stop on this word facilitate, because we don't want to tweak the behavior. We don't want to make our user do something that they don't want to do. We want just to facilitate what they actually want to do. And in this case, specifically for this talk, is conclude the checkout. So to facilitate a certain behavior, we want to find the perfect mix of three things. Motivation. I will deep dive on each one of these after, but let me just tell you the motivation is probably the hardest to get. Ability, also how easy it is to perform a task. And finally, trigger, which without it, nothing happens. So basically, what the behavioral model says is that there is a direct correlation between motivation and ability. The easier the task, the less motivation I need to perform it, and of course, the contrary. The most complicated is the task, the highest motivation I need to conclude it. So let's start with this motivation part. As I told you, this is the trickiest part, because it goes beyond conscious. So even about ourselves, we're not too sure if we can define how motivated we are, and it also varies a lot. One day I'm super motivated to wake up and go for a run, the other day, no, I'm sure it resonates with a lot of us. And I'm gonna tell you a story that is probably more relevant to your work. It's actually a story that happened to me this summer with a client that I was consulting for their mobile website regarding UX. So as I normally do, I started from data, and I was looking at their data and their analytics, and actually more than 60%, as it's normal, of the traffic were coming from mobile, and around 40% of conversion were coming from mobile as well, which it's actually pretty good from what I normally see, because we know that people tend to convert on desktop. So I was kind of pleased and I said, oh, they might have a very good website. Then I went to their website, their mobile website, and they didn't have one. So they actually used their desktop version on the mobile. And it was a very packed desktop version, so full of text, full of small images, impossible to read, call to action super tiny. And I stopped and I said, well, they must have a very motivated users. They actually were so happy about their data that they didn't do anything until now. But what I was trying to convince them to do is that, imagine you have such motivated user. You're very lucky. You have a very value proposition that is very strong. But use them, like try to make their life easier so that you can ask them even more that you're doing now. So maybe I haven't said that, but you don't have to do what they did, so don't do that at home. Please continue to have a mobile website. It's just a way to explain you what a motivation is. So the goal for you, again, as I said, a lot is not under our control, but there is something that we can do to facilitate, to increase motivation. First of all is what I mentioned just now, value proposition. Remember why they're doing the effort. And the value proposition needs to have some characteristic. First of all, has to be clear, not clever. Sometimes, and it's probably not fully the designer folks or the people in this room, we have to use the phrase that is used in the commercial, but it's probably very clever, but not clear at all. Well, we have to explain what actually we are doing, we are selling. We don't have to impress our user, at least not with the value proposition. Secondly, again, it's about the user, so give them some valuable, or give them something valuable or useful. It's not about saying how good we are, but what we can do for them. And finally, explain them why they should choose you and not your competitor. So maybe now you can think of your value proposition and see if it answers to these three characteristics. Once that you have selected a very good value proposition, then you have to use it every time. In every step, remember why they're doing that. Try to keep up the motivation. Not just the homepage and the product page, but remember that in the checkout as well. Why? Because we're all multitasking. So maybe we left our things in the cart and then we come back and we don't remember that there is free shipping. And it's so easy to just a subtle reminder like this one that it's a waste not to use it all the time. Encourage them to finish what they started. This is a very strong motivator. I'm sure if you think of yourself again, I don't know, if some of you run, or if you decided to do something and you see, or you put a lot of effort already in something, and you see that you're almost finished, well, this is a motivation to continue and to finish. And another things about humans in general is that they don't like to leave things unfinished. So that's another powerful motivation here. I was talking about emotion, you remember before? And actually fear is one of the strongest emotions when we talk about checkout. Fear of, the trust is also a lot about fears. So not only try to use as many badges as possible, reminding how secure is your website, but also try to use a reassuring voices, a human voice. Here, I don't know if you can read, but it says you are in good hands. You can find your own voice, of course. But remember, even this human touch can help reassure and loosen up a little bit of fear of this point. And again, at the last point, you can also rely on the trusted partners. You can rely on other brands. PayPal, for example, the majority of us, a lot of us, knows about the return policy, and PayPal users know about the return policy, so they might trust you more if you have PayPal. And then, of course, I'm going to talk about us as well. Google Pay, Apple Pay, these are very well-known brands, and they have very strong user base that trust them, probably more than an unknown or a small website. Celebrate their success. So this, I like it very much, because as humans, we love compliments. And even here, it might seem it's very subtle, but we often criticize them, which is good. We have to tell them that they're doing a mistake. But why don't we also celebrate them when they're doing something good? And in this case, it's just a green tick to tell them that they inserted the right data. And this, I like this because as humans, again, we learn better when we receive a positive reinforcement instead of a negative one. So this can also teach your users and help them later. And this helped me link as well with the second element I was telling you about before, the ability element. So the ability, remember, is how easy it is to perform a task. And even if here you have more power because you can make your things easier, it's not entirely into you, because for me, something can be very easy, for my friend can be very complicated. So again, it's a relationship among two values. But there is much more that you can do here. And here, of course, the trend is the don't make me think or make it obvious sentence. So help users, but also make them feel in control. So as users, as humans, better, we don't like to make choices. We try to avoid choices for the majority of the time. And that is the reason for what sometimes we also tend to rely on our, what we call gut feeling. It's just because we don't like to make choices. But we also want to be in control. So we don't want others to make choices for us. So what you can do is very subtle, and it's very delicate here. The suggestion is that you pre-select some fields whenever it's possible, and also pre-tick some boxes. But again, always, don't trick them, don't hide these things, make it obvious, and make it very easy to change as well, to make sure that users are able to change if they don't like it. Reduce choices, but not too much. What I'm saying here is that we've seen before, and actually Raisa also mentioned that before. Of course, we know that too long and complicated form, these are not good. And we need to reduce choices, reduce form fields as much as possible. But there is something a little bit counterintuitive here, and is actually, it's a case study by Conversion Excel. I don't know if you saw this before, but what I like about this test is that they tested actually two versions of the same form. One is 9 fields, and the second is 6 fields. And the results were actually that the version B, so the one shorter, had less leads than the other one, minus 14.23%. Again, you have to test it. You don't know. In this specific case, then of course it was a lot about context. We know now that users expect to have certain fields when they buy something: the shipping, the payment, of course, the details. That's okay. We know that. And if we don't see them in a form, there might be something fishy in the website. So again, try to reduce choices. Try to test everything, but try also to be consistent and also to test. Again, about simplification, make things easier, simplify every step. And again, I'm bringing up Google Pay. I don't know if you know our form of payment. It's a way that simplifies a lot the way user can make a payment. So instead of adding a lot of credit card details, their credit card details, not a lot, but they just do it with 2 steps. Buy with GPay, choose your credit card that is already saved, and done. So as you can see, this is a lot of simplification and makes it much quicker to complete the checkout. And finally, I like how our two presentations link so well. We talked about try to reduce as much as possible the words, which is great, but also try to choose your words wisely. So I took this example where I hope it's very obvious for everyone that 96% spam-free is much better than only 4% of spam. When we see them like this together, it's easy. Yes, of course, everybody would choose that. But very often on our website, we are so used to the word we use that we don't think how they frame the context. So try also to think about the most important part of your website, of your checkout, how you actually ask questions and how you frame them. So we are now at the last part of this magic mix, as I was saying before. And trigger, of course, as I said, I can't name one that is more important than the others, but without trigger, nothing happened. Trigger is the signal of when and where to take action. As human, we always take action when we are triggered. And of course, the most important thing is to use design, use proper design. I will not deep dive here because I'm sure in the room there are people that are expert, I am not. But designing a good trigger is the basis. Next is to use the right message at the right time. So, of course, I'm sure in all your website, there's going to be a button to add to the cart. But I don't know for how many of your website you actually ask your user if they want to save the cart to the email when they're going out. So if they're leaving your cart, you can maybe offer them some option. Save cart to the email, or are you sure you want to leave us? Something like that. And finally, also the way, again, I'm going back to this point, the way you talk to them, make them feel special, even after purchase. Make them feel special. I don't know if you ever heard about this effect. It's called the cocktail party effect. I think the name is very catchy. It basically said, when we are in a party, it's very crowded, lots of noise, lots of distractions. But when we hear our name, we are triggered. So we react. And using names and using personalization show that you know them and actually you remember them, you care about your user, make them feel special. Even after, how nice it is, we go to a party and then we arrive home and we receive a nice thank you note for being there. These small things can really help you connect with your user, not just ask them something. So I'm at the end. What I wanted to bring here today is not to completely change or bring a revolution in your companies. No, I'm sure you're all doing very good job. But maybe it's something that you can add. You can add it up. You can combine to what you're already using. So let me summarize that with you. Listen to your user, but go further. So when we ask our user what they want, it's great. It's a good starting point. But very often they don't know what they want. Look at numbers, but think of the people behind them. Again, always start with numbers, with data. These are great, but they don't tell the full story. So sometimes even stopping them and think how some people can react to something, it's already a good starting point. User follows conversion flow. Humans are irrational. So again, conversion flow is our starting point, but remember that humans are irrational. They might have a bad day, and that's the reason why they left there, even if you did everything correctly. And finally, always, always, always A/B test your hypothesis. That's the basic, because something that can work for someone, I remember this morning Jamal test about the toilet paper, cannot work for everyone. So I hope that this will help you always to consider a broader picture when you design your checkout flow. And you can maybe bring a little bit of human's emotion and human perspective when you're doing that. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you later.